Hello, everyone. It's been a little bit of time. This is Total Football Talk. I'm Anthony.
And I'm back at home and not in front of the camera, so you know I'm Eric.
We're gonna cover a couple of things really quickly. For those of you that are excited about the Rams getting Clay Matthews, I don't know what to tell you. I would have been really excited if we got Clay Matthews about 5 years ago, but getting Clay Matthews now just means our defense got older and slower. You add Weddle to the mix and Clay Matthews, and yeah, it's going to be a long.
The all-art team.
Yeah, no kidding, right? I love that the experts are saying that the Rams are going to address defense. At what point are we going to address the offensive line, Eric? I'm just curious.
It's hard to say only because the last wave of like major free agents have already signed. There's really nobody out there who can make a big difference. So your best bet is hoping that your younger guys, no room for one to mention, steps up. But no, the draft is where you really got to hit it. And yeah, I know maybe getting a guy in the second round, or who knows where you go first round, whether that's offensive line or defense. But if you get a defensive player that will eventually take over for Clay Matthews or an Eric Weddle, and he can learn for a year, that's not bad. But you do have to go right after offensive line.
You get an offensive lineman in the first round. You're going to get the best offensive lineman in the draft. It's
right. And also consider where you're picking. Not everybody's going to go for defense first either.
Oh, well, I just don't think there's a lot of push for offensive line. I mean, offensive linemen, if they're not in a draft
nobody cheers for offensive linemen getting drafted in the first round, especially with a fickle fan base. And I'm not saying the Rams are. I'm not saying the Rams have a fickle fan base. But I'm saying, like, you get your Philly, okay? And they're like, oh, we're going to select offensive tackle. Oh!
Yeah.
Like, they don't care. He could be a Pro Bowl player and a Super Bowl champion for the next 10 years, and they'll still throw him.
Yeah. No, I know that. I'm saying with how deep this draft is, I think you'll probably, if you do draft linemen, you're right. We may not get the best lineman, or maybe we do because somebody makes a boneheaded move and goes after the number 2 guy because their indicator tells them that's where they need to go. I don't know, but.
Well, you were also telling me this in a separate phone conversation a few days ago. There's first-round talent in the second round, and there's second-round talent in the third round. So, you could literally get 2 big playmakers, and whether one of them is an offensive lineman or not, that could be your second-round pick right there.
Yeah.
Who he could have gone in first round.
Right. You're right. The other thing that I wanted to touch on briefly, Eric, is when the Bears play the Rams, Robert Havenstein is going to be our left tackle, so I'm going to call it right now. Khalil Mack ends the game with 9 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 3 fumble recoveries.
Nice. I'll take that. Maybe throw in an interception in there. Good night.
Well, because the nice thing is if Havenstein struggles, we could just simply put in that's right. We only have 5 or 7 offensive linemen.
That's hilarious.
So
you know what? Plus, don't be too discouraged right now. It's April, okay? The draft is in a month or so.
It's just Eric, free agency. Eric,
you always get contract cuts as well.
Free agency.
Somebody's going to cut in Orlando State, and you're going to get them.
No, but free agency, Eric.
Your team better than
free agency has come and gone, and the Rams did not address the number 1 position of concern on the roster. I was not concerned with the secondary. Well, I know.
And neither did the Bears.
Well, you're right. So go ahead and talk about that really quick.
All right. Well, in case you've been living under a rock, the Bears traded Jordan Howard for a 6th-round pick in 2020. They could get as high as 5th round. I think the Bears sold low. To be completely honest with you, I think they sold low. I thought they could have gotten at least a 4th rounder for Jordan Howard. Listen, I know there have been 6th-round running backs who've gone out to the Hall of Fame, most notably Terrell Davis. And there's a 6th-round quarterback who is still playing at his age and winning Super Bowls galore. And his name's Tom Brady. So you can't find talent in round 6. I'm not worried about that. I'm just saying that if you were going to get the type of draft that you were going to get from the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think that's the last place that I want to send Jordan Howard, because I know he's going to be a 1,200-yard rusher in Philadelphia because they're going to take some pressure off of Carson Wentz. But you trade with Philly, try to get smoked in the deal. Man, I think you tailor your team to make sure that Jordan Howard can be a difference maker on the Bears offense.
Eric, you're breaking up bad, man.
What?
You're breaking up bad.
Oh, well, okay. I am in the car.
Okay, well, that's better. That's better.
I'm just saying that I think the Bears so low that I'm going to watch Jordan Howard do exactly what Alshon Jeffrey did in Philadelphia, and that's third.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, I really foresee the Bears selecting a running back in round 3, round 4. Who that's going to be, I have no idea. Only because, they don't have a first or second round pick. But, they signed Mike Davis. And if Mike Davis runs for over 900 yards, like, I'm fine with it. But I want to see him look explosive. And I want to see him catch balls on the backfield. They didn't do much with Howard. They're like, Howard can't catch, so we're going to get rid of him. Well, no. You kind of tailor your offense to who you have. And I know you can steal your own offense, but you play it also their strengths. And you know what Howard's strength was? Running the ball through the freaking mill.
Well, that and the fact that
his yards per carry declined for straight years. But, when you're a rookie, you have fresh legs. You're like, nobody can stop me. Yeah, I can average 5.1 yards per carry. And then you went down to like 4.2, and then you went down to like 3.7, somewhere around there.
Well, you can't, as a running back,
I know it.
as a running back, you can't produce when you're not getting the carries. This is what the NFL doesn't realize. The NFL wants to be a passing league, then be a passing league. But don't sit there and grade running backs based on yards per carry when you know a running back needs 25 to 30 carries a game. That's just the reality.
How true that was. What the heck won the Super Bowl?
What?
Defense and running the football.
No one ran the football in the Super Bowl. What won the Super Bowl was one team won it more than the other. Well, I'll get to what won the Super Bowl in a minute. But, are you going to say either one of those teams were dominant running the ball?
No.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. You had a lucky pass down the sideline on the only touchdown of the game, and you had 4 field goals. So, 3 field goals. Yeah, 3 field goals. We missed the 4th one. Otherwise, it would have been 13-6. All right. So, I want to get to the elephant in the room. So, Eric, how many years have I been saying they need to change the rules so you can challenge pass interference?
Quite a while.
Yeah, over 5, maybe
quite
7. Right. So, you'd think I'd be happy about the decision of the NFL changing the rule finally. But this is the part where if you guys don't agree, it's fine. Go ahead and click the X button. We're kind of done. I'm not getting into conspiracy theory. I'm getting into reality. The NFL should change its name to the WWFL or WWF, World Wrestling Football, because it's about as realistic as the NFL is, as wrestling is. So I'm going to give you a history lesson. Before I get into the history lesson, let me explain what I mean. So, in 1999, the Rams got to the Super Bowl, and during the championship game, which was a closely contested game, the Rams had benefited from the catch rule as it had been written since 1920, right? You can have possession, but if any part of the ball touches the ground, it's incomplete. Now, this rule, everyone lived by, everyone was cool with, and no one complained, right? And the Rams, trust me, they were on the bad end of that rule multiple times. 93, Sunday Night Football game against the San Francisco 49ers. Willie Flipper Anderson had a touchdown. He had possession, but the nose touched the ground. Incomplete. Rams lose by 4. You know, the list goes on and on and on. Super Bowl 14, right? Not Billy Waddy, but Ron Smith had a touchdown in the back of the end zone, but the ball touched the ground. Incomplete. As the rule stood. But the minute the Rams benefited from the rule, they made the rule change called the Bert Emanuel rule the very next season. Okay. So what, Anthony? Fast forward to this year. Once again, this pass interference thing, the Rams have been on the receiving end of bad calls that I've said it and I'll say it again. The year Seattle went 7-9 and beat New Orleans in the wild card game, the Rams were 6-10 that year, and there were 6 games that were taken from them by bad calls on pass interference through the course of the season. All at the end of game or in overtime that swung the momentum in favor of the other team. I didn't see the Rams complaining. I didn't see the NFL changing a rule, right? But lo and behold, fast forward to last year, the Rams actually get to the Super Bowl again by benefiting from the rules as they were in play. And what does the NFL do? They change the rule the very next year. Guys, if you don't believe that the Saints were scripted to go to the Super Bowl, you're too stupid for words, and I can't help you. Okay? Dwight D. Eisenhower once said, you can't prevent stupid, you can only hope to avoid it. Okay? I can't prevent you from being dumb, right? But you look back and you see how the media completely lost their mind for an entire week. We lost a week of Super Bowl coverage because the media couldn't get over this blown call that wasn't that extravagant in comparison to other teams, other years, other times in other decades, and even current decades. Yeah, it was a bad call, but again, there's no guarantee the Saints kick the field goal. There's no guarantee the Rams don't still go up the field on a blown coverage. So many things could still have happened. And the fact that Saints had the ball in overtime, this should have been a conversation Sunday and Monday and then dropped. But it wasn't. Why? Because the NFL media is in on it, because the NFL front offices are in on it, and they lost their mind when their script went AWOL. Go back and look. The last 4 Super Bowls until this year had a Super Bowl trailer, right? You know, Patriots versus Eagles, you know, and they had this whole little made-up trailer by the NFL.com that previewed the Super Bowl. There was no trailer for this year's Super Bowl. Why? Because the one they had made back in January of 2018, March, because I think they make these decisions at the meetings, okay? In March of 2018, the teams that they had scripted to go to the show didn't pan out. Somebody screwed up. Let's go to the WWF real quick. So in World Wrestling Federation, or World Wrestling Entertainment, if you will now, WrestleMania 13 was supposed to be Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels tore his ACL in the match, on the Royal Rumble match against Sid Vicious. It was built as winner goes to WrestleMania, okay? Winner was going to go to WrestleMania, because this was after the Royal Rumble, so this was in February, sorry. Michaels got injured during the match, and he said, wrap it up, which is code for pin me, I can't go anymore, something happened, right? The WWE didn't lose their collective minds for a month. They just went with the script, right? Okay, it's Shawn Michaels isn't able to go. It's going to be Sid Vicious versus Undertaker. And they scripted it so Undertaker won because that's what the World Wrestling Federation does. I don't think the NFL necessarily scripts the Super Bowl outcome because there's no extra money to be made when somebody wins the championship, right? But there's money to be made if it's Saints and Drew Brees versus the Patriots and Tom Brady. All year long, we were hearing how the Saints were the best team in football, even though they barely beat the Rams in New Orleans. They struggled with Philadelphia, and the Rams came back from 13 down in the championship game. But we were supposed to believe that the Saints were this juggernaut, right? And that's why. They had been building the Patriots and the Saints all year long. Then the championship game happened, and something happened. There was a cog in the wheel, some hiccup in the giddy-up, and the NFL didn't know what to do. So what did they do? They made a rule change, so if that were to happen again, they have an out to guarantee the outcome they want. No one's convincing me I'm wrong. Call it stubbornness, call it naivety, whatever you want to call it. I know I'm right. Because here's a question for you. Other than somebody from the NFC East, all right, the Packers, the Seahawks, the 49ers in the NFC, and the Saints. Got to throw the Saints in there because they're a darling. And in the AFC, the Steelers, any team Peyton Manning was on, the New England Patriots, the Baltimore Ravens, because they had such a great rivalry with the Steelers. Okay? And I believe that's it. There you go. Right? Those 9 teams, let's say 10 or 12, 11 teams. Of those teams, I want you to go back and I want you to think really hard because I know the answer. Comment below if you know the answer. What was the last team I didn't just mention to win a Super Bowl? What is a team of those that I did not mention? The NFC East, the Packers, the Seahawks and the 49ers, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Patriots, and anybody Peyton Manning was on. Right? Other than those teams, what is the last team that I didn't mention to go and win a Super Bowl? I'll give you 5 seconds, and then, Eric, I want you to see if you can answer it. 5. Eric, do you know the answer?
Tampa Bay 2002?
You got it, buddy. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2002. That is the last time somebody other than those teams went to a Super Bowl and won. And coincidentally, those are all the teams that the NFL just loves to talk about. You want to watch an NFL football game, a classic? Guarantee you it's one of those teams. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. You want to watch coverage on, breaking news on an NFL team that made a trade? I guarantee you it's one of those teams. The exception was the Rams last year because they were so all in and so aggressive that it took people by surprise. And it was hindering Seattle's progress, so they had to cover it. Sorry. Let me help you guys out. There is a new darling in there that's going to be thrown into this cog this year, and that's the Chiefs. They love them some Mahomes. So guarantee Kansas City will be in the playoffs and competing for Super Bowls every year for the next however long Pat Mahomes is quarterback in Kansas City.
Well, somebody's got to overtake Brady when Brady finally retires.
Yeah, right. It's like in wrestling, right? Somebody had to replace Hogan. We'll make it Shawn Michaels. Somebody had to replace Shawn Michaels. We'll make it Stone Cold. And The Rock. Somebody had to replace those two. Let's go with John Cena. It's no different, guys. It's all scripted. And unless you're a fan of one of those teams, you don't have a snowball's chance in Hades of getting any kind of love. Until Goodell is gone, this is the cards that we are dealt.
I'd call you crazy, but knowing how many times I've heard Super Bowl III was fixed, it's hard to not take what you say seriously.
Well, Super Bowl III had to be fixed. And that was actually a good fix. That helped the league. That helped both.
Well, it just goes to show that whether it's a good fix or your go-to fix, it's still the safe fix.
Well, and the reality is, Eric, too, it's not illegal to do it. As long as they're not running to Vegas and betting on the outcome after the meeting on March 3rd, they're good.
So you think, by your logic, okay, that after these meetings happened in Phoenix, that they already decided who was making the playoffs?
They decided who's making the playoffs. They decided who's going to the conference championship game, and they decided who's going to the Super Bowl. Now, I don't think they determined the winner of the Super Bowl because, again, there's no extra money to be made there. All the money in the NFL is the Super Bowl and the build-up to it. So if you've got Drew Brees versus Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers versus Pat Mahomes, right, you're good. Super Bowl I rematch.
You're going to have Mitch Trubisky versus Andrew Luck.
Well, I hope you're right. God, I hope you're right, because that means I'm wrong. I will jump for joy and scream like a 5-year-old girl if I'm wrong. But I have a feeling it's going to be New England again, or Kansas City, or Pittsburgh.
You're right about New England. There's nobody who's going to overtake New England.
Well, I mean, as far as once they get to the playoffs, I know they'll win the East, right? But it's going to be one of those 4 teams coming out of the AFC. You are not going to get Andrew Luck in the Colts. So let me just make it very clear here, guys. I'm not happy about this. I've contemplated doing a show like this for a long time, but you consider how many times I've been right. Okay? I called the Rams 4-12 record. I called the Rams winning the division and losing in the wild card round. I called the Rams going to the Super Bowl. Granted, I said they'd win. I was wrong. Okay? I called the AAF folding within a year. Okay? They folded this year. Mid-year, they folded. Right? I don't say things for the sake of saying things to get hits and subscribers, clearly. Right? The most I've ever had anybody view... Well, the most I've had anybody view my show is 643. By the way, Eric, guess what show that was?
I don't know.
That was the championship game review when I showed footage of the Redskins 49er game and said blown calls are not that out of the ordinary, and they have happened in big games before that were just as obvious. That long show that we did, that show has had more hits than any other show that I've done. And that's saying something, okay? But even that only has 643 views. Some people on YouTube have 1.3 million views. So I'm not doing this to get views. I'm doing this to pass knowledge on to you guys and opinions based on information that I've gathered over time. And when they decided to change the rule, after hearing all winter long, oh, they're not going to change the rule, they're not going to change the rule, they're not going to change the rule, and then they did, that told me all I needed to know. That was the NFL coming out and saying, guys, we script the outcome. We pick the winners and losers. We hope you're okay with it. We are the World Wrestling Football League. We are the WWFL. That's what we are. Hope you're okay with it. And oh, by the way, if you're not, what else do you have to watch? Well, we have the XFL in a year. We'll see if that pans out. So that's my 2 cents. You guys comment. You think I'm crazy. Fine, I've heard it before. The amount of times people have told me. I asked Jim, Eric, if he thought, because I told him the same thing I told you. The Packers, the Steelers, the Seahawks, they will all make the playoffs this year. They will all make the playoffs this year. Guarantee it. Saints, all of them. Jim, even that wasn't enough for Jim. But you said what to me when I told you who's going to make the playoffs?
We'll see.
And if it happens, what?
And if it happens, I'd be more in tune to believe what you're saying.
But see, even Eric doesn't necessarily believe me right now. It's interesting. It's got his ears perked, but he thinks I'm as crazy as you guys do.
And I don't think you're crazy. I want to see if it ends up being true. Like same blood in the playoffs or new blood.
I'll tell you, Eric.
You're going to see Cleveland in the playoffs. That's all I'm telling you right now.
Well,
I'm trying to see Pittsburgh.
Cleveland will get in. I have no doubt Cleveland will get in, but they'll lose, probably to Pittsburgh. Here's the funny thing. Okay? I'll tell you when I knew I was right. I knew I was right. When the Ravens played the 49ers in the Super Bowl. That was the same year Alabama blew out Notre Dame. There had not been a Super Bowl blowout to that point in over a decade. And all of a sudden, here come the Ravens, kick return, stop the 49ers, touchdown, turnover, they got the ball at midfield, and all of a sudden the power went out. And the power only went out in half of the stadium. It didn't go out in New Orleans. It didn't go out in the city. It didn't go out in the surrounding areas of New Orleans. It was only the Louisiana Superdome.
Yep.
It had never happened before, and it has never happened since. And you have this long layover, and then all of a sudden the 49ers come roaring back and it's a close game.
Yep.
If that wasn't evidence right there that I'm right, I don't know what else to say.
The Ravens are starting to pull away and blow out the Niners.
Oh yeah, it was over.
You watch any part of that game, and if you don't think that actually happened, not only does Anthony have a snowball in Haiti to sell you, but I got oceanfront property in Arizona to sell you.
Yeah, no kidding, right? It's just ridiculous. It is what it is. Well, at any rate, AAF folded. Eric, what do you want to say on this? Because I'll say my piece at the end, but I'll let you say yours.
Well, can't say that I'm surprised. It would have been nice if they would have kept going. I think this only strengthens the XFL. You might have said that, but I think McMahon is looking at this and kind of laughing under his breath, saying, "Well, I'm not going to make the same mistake twice," because he doesn't have to afford the same mistake twice.
Well, he doesn't make the same mistake twice.
I feel sorry for some of the players. Yeah. I mean, they're starting to put on good tape. Garrett Gilbert was getting noticed. Other guys were, possibly had another couple games to put on tape, and they won't have that now. That could really hinder their chances of getting an NFL job.
So I'll tell you what I think. I think if they knew what turned out to be the case, then I think that's their own damn fault, and they deserve every bit of lack of opportunity that they get in the future, meaning the players. If they were taken by surprise as much as the fans were about what this league actually was as opposed to how it was being advertised, then I think they need a class action lawsuit against the NFL, and I think they should get every bit of their money. And here's what I mean. So we were told that the AAF was a new league, new rules. It was going to be football, but different, and all these new things. And then week 1 comes, and it's on the NFL Network. You've got Cynthia Freeland. You've got Sean O'Hare. You've got Willie McGinnis commenting on all these teams, and you're like, what the frig? And all of a sudden you realize it's a farm system. This isn't anything new. This is the NFL's AAA. I'll tell you something else. The fans responded. Here in Arizona, the Hot Shots, half of the season ticket holders after week 1 went back to the Hot Shots and demanded their money back, or they were going to sue for false advertising. Because they bought tickets under the assumption that this was something new and something different. Not that this was a test pilot for the NFL and its talent. And the Hot Shots rapidly, quickly, and gleefully gave them their money back to avoid the lawsuit. You don't think for a minute the Arizona Hot Shots were the only team in that league to do that. So that's going to hurt your bottom line, right? When you have to return money that you had already gotten, right?
Absolutely.
On top of what you're paying your athletes. I think this doesn't just bode well for Vince McMahon, who is a brilliant business owner, and people that are as brilliant as he is, and he is one of maybe 5, in my opinion, as far as the most brilliant business people in the world. They don't make the same mistake twice. and he watched what the AAF just pulled, because trust me, I think he was worried that this AAF thing was going to be a thing. But as soon as week 1 hit, I promise you, Vince McMahon lit up a stogie and went, how sweet it is. And he was just counting down the days until the AAF folded, because he knew that was going to piss off a lot of fans. The whole reason he formed the XFL was to create something different for the fans who were tired of the same old garbage. And this only helps them. So we'll see how it all looks at the end of the day. Whether it folds or not, it's not going to be because he made the same mistake. It's going to be because of other mistakes. But I got to be honest with you. For the first time in my life, I'm not excited for the upcoming football season. I'm not counting the days down to the draft. I'm not counting the days down to preseason. I really don't care, because I know what's going to happen. We're going to get one of those 3 AFC teams in the Super Bowl. We're going to get one of those other teams I mentioned in the NFC to go to the Super Bowl, and it's just going to be the same old garbage over and over and over and over again. So, it is what it is, Eric.
Sure is.
All right, buddy. Anything you want to say for closing thoughts?
No. The draft and 754 mock drafts have already come out.
Yeah. And none of them are going to be accurate, so let's not worry about that. All right, I'm Anthony. Horns up.
Bear down.
Go Rams!
Go Bears.
Bye.